I'm Papa Kenn, and welcome to episode 28 of Discovering Doctor Who. Today, the episode I'm going to be talking about is simply titled 42. And in this episode, the Doctor and Martha end up on a spaceship that is hurtling towards the sun, or a sun at least. And it takes place over, approximately 42 minutes of real time, or approximate real time. And I thought it was really interesting to see everything being so fast-paced. But I'll get into more about that in a little bit. But first, let's get into my favorite parts of this episode. The first of which I've actually already mentioned. The first best part of this episode was actually the 42-minute time span, that approximate time span throughout the entire episode, where we experience those 42 minutes until the destruction of the ship, or until the ship's impact with the sun. I just thought that was a really interesting and a really clever idea. So I guess it was sort of along the lines of, the only example I can personally think of is the show 24, where it essentially takes place, each episode is 1 hour of, quote, real time in that show. So, if there's like 24 episodes approximately, or maybe 23 if one's a 2-hour show. But anyway, I just really like that whole theme, and the fact that they did a Doctor Who episode with that theme was just very interesting, and I really liked it. Now, the second best part of this episode was the possessed. I can't remember the actual character names, but the people that were essentially possessed by the sun, and the voice that overtook them when they were talking, which is this very deep, gravelly, very foreboding and demonic voice. And I just really liked the way that was done. A slight negative with them was the fact that the whole Cyclops vision thing was kind of hokey, or at least it seemed like it was, because it seemed like, in my mind, you get blasted with this, you should be pretty much almost immediately fried, whereas it seemed like it was taking a few minutes for this to happen. Maybe not that much, but a matter of maybe 30 seconds before they actually die and vaporize. I don't know, that's just my personal taste, but still, overall, I really liked these possessed characters. Now, the third, and for this episode, final best part of the episode was the Doctor's pain and panic. And I know that might sound weird to say that that's the best part of the episode. I guess you could say it's the best worst part of the episode, because I don't like to see anyone in pain, but it was just the fact that this was one of the first times the Doctor was ever, at least in my recollection, not in control to some degree. He was possessed by the sun, and it was burning him from the inside, and the fact that he had just lost all control and was terrified, and he knew that something was going to happen to him. If they didn't get whatever that was inside of him out, that he would end up killing all of them just like the others did. And possibly his next regeneration, if he had died in this episode. I really, that aspect of it honestly gave me chills. I was watching the episode and I was interested, but then that happened, I was just like, oh my God. It just got really tense. I just really, really like that aspect of this episode. And then I'd also like to throw out one honorable mention for this episode, and that would be the pub quiz questions. I just thought that was a really entertaining and interesting way to sort of cycle through all of these logs. And it added, or it led to some, pretty good comedy that I really appreciated in this episode. Now it's time to talk about the parts of the episode I didn't particularly care for, of which there's actually two. The first is that the second guy that gets possessed, the way they had him dressed, even when he had this pretty big, kind of freaky looking helmet on, it's just the way he was dressed in these big oversized gloves, it made it hard for me to take him seriously. I watched every time he would be walking on screen, and he didn't look intimidating at all. The first guy, yes. When the Doctor starts to get possessed, yes. The second guy, it was just... The outfit made him look goofy. And I know that you can't really help that because they needed to go with whatever the person's wearing, but it didn't work for me at all. And the second part about this episode... I guess you might, maybe it's just sort of an honorable mention negative, but, or dishonorable mention, but this episode felt a lot like the two-parter from the previous season, The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit. That just, something about it just felt so similar, including the voice, including the demonic voice. It just, I don't know, it felt like an alternate version of that story in a way. Maybe that's just me. Let me know what you all think about that. Maybe I'm just sort of interpreting it wrong, but I got that vibe from it, and it was a little off-putting. Almost felt kind of lazy, but then again, I mean, if it's two completely different writers, I would hope that one wouldn't copy off the other in some regard, but that just seemed weird to me. But okay, and to talk about the quote of this episode, and it's very short, but very succinct, and it is a part of this episode that just gave me chills. And I won't be able to deliver it in the same way as it was delivered, but those of you that have seen this episode will know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's from the Doctor, and he says, "I'm scared. I'm so scared." When, throughout any of the episodes, at least in the new Doctor Who so far, has the Doctor ever expressed just absolute and complete fear? The first time he saw the Dalek, when he was the Ninth Doctor, you know, that was fear that immediately gave over to anger. And there have been times where, you know, you can see he's visibly afraid or worried, and even in pain. Like we see the Ninth Doctor being hurt on that same episode where we see the Dalek for the first time, where they're x-raying his chest. But this is the first time we've seen him in, like, expressing physical, horrible pain and being scared. That quote right there just explained all of it, like everything that I needed to know about this episode. And that is, it's the first time I have seen the Doctor in legitimate, true fear for his life, in addition to everyone else around there. Because once he regenerated, if that thing was still inside him, or inside the new him, what would happen? It was just such a good quote for this episode, and I really liked the way that was pulled off. It's just, you know, all that combined together, the quote, everything that he said, and just the whole fact of him being possessed at all. And now, to talk about my overall thoughts about this episode. I honestly think this is one of the, maybe not best, but easily one of the better episodes that has happened all season. Just the fact that they took the whole 42-minute thing and just, you know, it really kept everything at a fast pace. And in some episodes, even though it's not a very long show, you know, there are times where things can kind of be in a lull, or it's like, you know, the middle of an episode might seem kind of kind of like how some movies do. This episode didn't allow for that at all. It was pretty much constantly fast-paced. Things were constantly going on. They were fighting against the clock, literally. And I really liked pretty much everything about this episode. Even the negatives, honestly. The negatives that I pulled out were just sort of little issues that bugged me a little bit. They weren't major problems in my eyes. So yeah, overall, I really do feel that this was dare I say, a great episode. I really enjoyed it overall. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It was really good, and it's one of those that definitely has me ready to go right into the next episode. And I haven't really said that in a while, because I've kind of been, you know, going with the flow and, you know, ready to be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it's like, you know, let's get to the next episode whenever. This is the first one in, you know, several episodes that has made me feel, you know what, I feel like watching the next one right now. And now I guess sort of my question that comes from this episode would be, what was the information Saxon's minions, or Saxon's little informants, were gathering from Martha's mom? It's like, what kind of information were they pulling, what they were downloading onto that computer? I'm very interested to find that out. Everyone, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Discovering Doctor Who. As always, please leave your comments down below and let me know what you thought about this episode, both the actual episode and this video. Let me know what some of your favorite moments were, if there were some other aspects of it that you didn't care for. I always look forward to hearing what you have to say, and the comments have gotten really lively here lately, especially in some of the older ones. I keep going back and seeing new comments, and that's awesome. Thank you all very much. And just so you know, you might notice this one's slightly shorter than some of the more recent episodes of Discovering Doctor Who, and that's because I'm trying to sort of, keep it shorter, as I said in the previous episode, so that I can keep moving forward and hopefully get caught up with the show by the time the new season starts. So, we're just going to keep going forward, and actually I will see you all next time on the two-parter episode that will cover human nature and the family of blood. Well, everyone, until next time, I'm Papa Ken, and I'll see you next Discovering Doctor Who. There's way too many nexts in there. Bye, everyone.